The next 100 days of this Trump presidency are crucial.
Still think you gotta continue winning the culture war. We shouldn't spike a football after Roe v. Wade.
Are we going to see significant cuts to all the bloat in the federal government, including the abortion industry?
We'll say Israel just lays down all their arms and throws them in the ocean. What would happen? If Hamas laid down their arms, what would happen?
What do you want to see happen with the cartels?
Oh, God, how long do you have?
When you think about America in 5 years or 10 years, what are you seeing? Politically, I know culturally, obviously we're fighting, but... Hey guys, welcome to the Lila Rose Show. As you can see, this is not my office. It's pretty cool though. This is Congressman Dan Crenshaw's office. We're going to be talking with him about the next 100 days of the Trump presidency, his amazing work, the fight for life, and so much more. So there's this whole Doge department, and you and I were discussing this earlier, and people were super pumped about, if you have Elon Musk behind it, it sounds so exciting, and the idea of like just getting rid of all of this bureaucracy and waste. And of course, we were very pumped to see them mention Planned Parenthood, the biggest abortion chain, are getting $700 million a year. Is that going to play a role in the budget reconciliation process? Are we going to see significant cuts to all the bloat in the federal government, including the abortion industry bloat, or what are you seeing?
Well, you got to look at places where you're going to get hundreds of billions of dollars, not a few million here and there, because it just won't have an effect. You should. We do that every time through appropriations, but in the end, you still need consensus. So the answer is yes, but we're really looking at big ticket items. So.
700 million is something, though, right?
No, it's practically
it's something
nothing.
To the baby. There's something to the babies that they're murdering. I think
that's true.
That's
true. But we already attack that issue constantly. Again, it's.
But I guess I'm asking, do you think Planned Parenthood's going to make it? Funding for them will make it in the budget? Or are we going to cut that?
Well, first we have to explain to people how funding even gets to Planned Parenthood. It's not like there's a line item for Planned Parenthood. That's never how it's been. Planned Parenthood does services and then they charge Medicaid for them, and they claim those services are not abortion. They're other kinds of care. Of course, our investigations show that the vast majority of their care is indeed abortions, and so that's the conflict. That's how they supposedly get money from the government. And this goes into the child transition stuff too, the gender transition stuff, where we've seen evidence in Texas, for instance, where it became illegal, and doctors will enter a code for like endocrine therapy, and not calling it gender transition, and it's scamming Medicaid. So yeah, you need oversight over it to really get to the bottom of it, but. It's already illegal, and people need to understand that. It's already illegal for Medicaid dollars to go to any kind of abortion for Planned Parenthood, and there's no Planned Parenthood line item. The difficulty is that money fungible, and that's not as easy to figure out as people think, and especially not in reconciliation, where you can't do serious policy changes. But we have come up with a creative way, at least on the gender transition issue, which would change like the Social Security Act. And because what we're really trying to do is defund children's hospitals that are doing gender transitions. I've had a bill that does that. It made it out of committee. We never voted on it. And so it's something I've been pressuring the speaker to do, but a better path will be through reconciliation. And again, just to explain to people why reconciliation matters is because you only need 51 votes in the Senate. That's why. Everything else, you need 60 votes. That's why all this stuff is tough.
And how many we have, right? Just for folks listening, I know we have a lot of politicos who listen.
We have 54. Am I right about that?
We're short several votes in the Senate to get really meaningful, big, beefy
definitely
stuff
don't have
through.
60.
Yeah.
And we have like one to two, depending on what month you're talking about, because of people going to the administration, people retiring, a whole bunch of reasons. Maybe at most we might have a 3 to 4 seat majority in the House. And obviously it's like wrangling cats here. So, getting anything meaningful done is tough, and getting together and getting reconciliation done right is going to be important. But the president's priorities are energy, keeping his tax cuts in place, and border, and then it's up to the committees to kind of find that money. And we've had presentation after presentation of like where we actually find some savings. Coming from energy and commerce, we have our conversations. The president doesn't, you don't want to touch Medicare because it freaks out all seniors. So you've got to look at streamlining Medicaid and making that a better system. There's a whole bunch of complicated ways to talk about that, about options that exist out there. mostly to do with what the federal share is for each state, and it gets kind of boring and wonky, but it's meaningful. I mean, a lot of states rely on this money, and they've gotten addicted to it, and this is kind of a constant problem in all federal programs, really. So it'll be interesting to see where reconciliation ends up.
What's the timeline on that? The budget reconciliation process?
Everybody says they want to get it done by April. It's a very it's a little bit of an arbitrary timeline, but there's an urgency to it. While we feel we have a mandate to do it, and so that's why we're basically in session constantly up until then. But keep in mind, you also got to do the debt ceiling, the appropriations bills as well. So all that happens within that time frame. Are you getting tired?
Yeah, she literally is about to take her nap right here. Here's a question for you, Congressman. What can the pro-life community do and the conservative movement who are pro-family to best encourage call to action Congress and the president right now to have those meaningful wins? And we understand, there's a lot of, priorities that are competing, but it's, this is our family, these are our children, this is the future. So what would your advice be?
I mean, I still think you gotta continue winning the culture war. We shouldn't spike a football after Roe v. Wade. That was a legal battle we won. That didn't change the culture war. If anything, it aggravated the left to fight harder. And we saw a lot of losses in a lot of states where we were surprised we saw losses in.
Every once in a while, I find a small business that I fall absolutely in love with. And that's why I'm so excited to share We Heart Nutrition with you guys. WeHeartNutrition.com is a vitamin and supplement company that provides the highest quality, researched back ingredients, customized and optimized to help you be healthy. What I also love about We Heart Nutrition is that this is a family-owned company. And they're not just any family-owned company. This is a company that shares your values. And they donate a full 10% back of all of their revenue to pregnancy resource centers to help moms and babies in need. We Heart Nutrition customizes their vitamin packages specifically for your state in life. So whether you are premenopausal or postmenopausal, whether you're looking to conceive, help improve your fertility, whether you're pregnant, and this is a great prenatal vitamin, or you're postnatal. Plus, I'm very excited to share this with my husband. Now We Heart Nutrition has come out with their first line of men's vitamins. And if you order today at WeHeartNutrition.com, get your vitamins, you can get 20% off using the code Lila. And if you spend at least $50, you will get a free signature bamboo capsule vitamin box, which is very cute. I have one myself. So go to WeHeartNutrition.com today, use the code Lila at checkout to get 20% off your purchase. And when you spend $50, get that adorable free bamboo capsule box to store your vitamins in. That's WeHeartNutrition.com. You're very realistic about all of this. How do you see your leadership over the next decade?
My goal for a long time is I can only focus on so many things, right? So I've been focused on the gender transition issues for minors. Like that has to stop. That's a 90% issue. It should be the easiest thing in the world to vote on.
Especially if we're paying directly for it and taxpayers are directly funding it. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty gross. But it should just be illegal. Period. It's illegal. And the Labour Party, far left party in the UK won recently overwhelmingly. One of the first things they did was ban this practice because all the science is out at this point. It turns out it's bad for kids. Yeah, I would imagine. So we've won that argument. I think we'll win that legally. We're just kind of looking for the right legislative vehicle to get it done. But I think that does happen. Parents have been lied to by these crazy doctors over and over again. There's some really horrific stories out there. So just realistically, that's something I think we can actually win.
It's a key win.
Yeah, it really is. Obviously, my other big focus is just totally unrelated to cartels, and well, I guess it's not totally unrelated. I mean, cartels, what do? They traffic children. Mm-hmm. They'll do sorts of terrible, horrible, heinous things. We're at war with them, whether we want to admit it or not. And Trump administration recently labeled them as a terrorist organization. That's fine. It's a good message to send, but there's a lot more that has to happen to actually make good on that promise that we want to take them out. And
what do you want to see happen with the cartels?
Oh God, how long do you have? I mean,
long as you have, as long as the boss has. Yeah, actually,
I mean, I lead the cartel task force.
You lead the cartels task force here on the Hill.
And a task force just means a group of members that focus on a particular problem. We had no funding, we had no staff. We're trying to turn it into a select committee because this is one of Donald Trump's big priorities, is taking on the cartels. So far, it doesn't appear to be Speaker Johnson's priority because he refuses to give me an answer on a select committee. But we have a number of pieces of legislation that would target the cartels, from easy stuff like just increasing a fine here for mislabeling a air cargo manifest with chemical precursors from China. $5,000 fine right now, make it $5 million or whatever. Some easy ones like that. Some more money for assets in Mexico that the Mexicans will let us use. And then there's much bigger issues we have to tackle on the financing, like what kind of resources do we need at Treasury to get them to do more on sanctioning businesses that are associated with cartels. We've already had some big wins in legislation. So and one of them was, people might be surprised that we couldn't actually use our FISA authorization, which is basically it's basically the way we wiretap foreign entities. But those foreign entities are very specific. They have to be terrorists, they have to be foreign intelligence, or they have to be, has to do with weapons of mass destruction. You're allowed to use FISA for that. It's a controversial program, I think, because people are deeply misinformed about it. We could get into that in another time. But we added a fourth category, which was anyone involved in the trafficking of synthetic opioids. So that now includes, because it blows people's minds, but we weren't actually allowed to spy on the cartels before, if you could imagine that. We weren't allowed to spy on them. We weren't allowed to spy on the Chinese precursor companies making this stuff and sending it to them, and also doing the whole money laundering scheme with them. So now we've fixed that problem.
And they're often human traffickers too, right?
All sorts.
It's all of it.
We could get into a long conversation on how all of this happens and actually why it's a difficult problem set. And most people are just not educated on this. Everybody thinks they are. We'll just kill them. We'll just get them. Oh, if we label them terrorists, then we could just kill them. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way at all. It's a good message. I like that Trump is taking it seriously, and we do need to kill them. But the biggest thing we need is a Mexican security cooperation agreement. We need a plan Mexico, the way we have a plan Colombia. We've been dealing with Colombians for 30 plus years. We've had special forces in and out of Colombia all the time. And the Mexicans have always told us no. But
Why is that?
Because they're still upset about 1848. Honestly,
wow,
it really is that.
I guess the Gulf of America is not going to help.
It's not going to help. It's a sovereignty issue for them. It's a pride issue. It's long been, and I grew up in Latin America, grew up in Colombia, so this even surprised me the more I looked into it. And so there's some delicate diplomacy that needs to happen. It's a carrot and stick approach that has to happen to get them to do that. You got a new administration in Mexico that I think is more friendly to this idea. But you got to work with them. And then unless we choose to do unilateral ops, and then what the heck does that look like? You're dealing with an insurgency in Mexico. It's not like there's like camps that are obviously full of cartels and you can just bomb them. It doesn't work that way. They're very much integrated into the society, and you need a counterinsurgency campaign alongside the Mexican government to actually deal with it. So there's a lot to talk about there. A lot of it's executive branch, but a lot of it's Congress has to fund it. We have to authorize it. We've done all this research for the last year, and there's one of the reasons I say we need a select committee, and this is just getting into kind of civics nerd stuff. But let's say we've got 10 different pieces of legislation. They cut across like 9 different committees of jurisdiction. So I'm never going to get anything done that way, and especially without staff, because we've got ideas, but they need to be fleshed out. Doing proper legislation takes some time. You got to have some lawyers involved. You got to have the experts at the administration involved. Make sure the lawmaking you're doing is the correct lawmaking. That takes a lot of time and staff work, and the speaker just refuses to give it to me. I don't know why, considering it's such a priority of the administration. So
I'm seeing him tomorrow, Al.
Yeah, we should ask him. If I see him today, I'm going to be asking him again.
My number one ask is let's stop funding the biggest abortion chain that kills 1,000 babies a day. So that's an immediate, obvious one. But this is a not invaluable, not an unvaluable proposition.
Yeah.
So
and so if you wanted to to try and answer your question more simply, can you just stop Medicaid payments from going to Planned Parenthood at all? In theory, yes, you could pass a law to do that. Can you do it through reconciliation? I don't think so. I think that would be ruled out of order because it's a policy change. It might be straight up unconstitutional to begin with.
I think there's a way to. I think what they've done in past years is there's a way to not say Planned Parenthood in the lawmaking and the reconciliation process, but a certain kind of provider. is not eligible. So I think that would be more the approach that might be taken. So
I don't know if we figured out exactly how to do it. I do know it'd be tough to do in reconciliation, and I think that's the roadblock we always run into, and that's where it's important to manage people's expectations on it.
So when you think about America in 5 years or 10 years, what do you think we can achieve?
Let's see.
Politically, I know culturally, obviously, we're fighting, but when you're an elected member of the most powerful Congress in the world, body in the world, next to the executive branch of the judiciary, our American U.S. Congress. You'll probably be a senator one day, but I don't know if you're planning on anything else or have your own election.
It's not really the step up people think it is. I mean, it's not like you get paid more. Your schedule's the same.
I'm just saying, I think you've got a long path in front of you of public service after what you've been doing already. What do you think America looks like in 5 to 10 years? What should we be aiming at politically?
Oh, gosh,
for the family. I mean, your daughter, she's 1. She'll be 5. She'll be 10.
I mean, look, I think there's already a huge backlash culturally and now legally and politically against anything DEI, woke related. It hit a climax and it's really on a downturn. I think that's great. I think for the simple reason that people realize that the best way to not discriminate against race and gender is just to not discriminate against race and gender. I'm quoting. I stole
Brilliant.
That. Yeah. I did steal that from Senator Kennedy, who said it on an interview a couple of days ago. But it's but we've been saying that for years, and we've been winning the arguments. And on the pro-life side, again, it's still a culture war. And we've got to win it at the state levels. And while I may agree, I'll vote for a bill. It's 15 weeks. You want me to vote for 0 weeks? Yeah, I'll vote for it. But I'm in an easy position. I'm from Texas, deep red. That's an easy vote for me. Don't think that's going to happen in the Congress. And I think that's where Trump's coming from when he says he's not going to propose it. Where he's coming from is this understanding that there's a political position and there's a moral position, and sometimes they can coincide if you come from the right, if you're representing the right district. Sometimes they can't, and then sometimes you got to think strategically, wherein you spike the football too hard, then there's a backlash, and again, there's some examples where we've seen that backlash where Democrats have been smart and they've put kind of these sneaky abortion laws on the ballot that I don't think people were perfectly educated on, and codified a very late abortion in some of these red states. So there's obviously some more education that we have to do. This is an issue that gets young people out. Young people don't come out for fixing Social Security. I don't know why. They should. You talk about issues that matter and are going to crush your economy in 50 years or maybe less. Crush your retirement. Maybe you should probably come out and vote for Republicans on that, because we actually want to fix it. Democrats just want to tax you more so that they can transfer those taxes directly to your grandparents. But young people come out for this kind of thing. It is the babies. Yeah, but it's everything. It's slowly changing. I think we're educating more and more young people on what it is to be pro-life and why it's important. But the reality is we still have some work to do.
7 Weeks Coffee is America's pro-life coffee company on a mission to fund the pro-life movement, one delicious cup of coffee at a time. And they check every box. This is pesticide-free, mold-free, organically farmed, low-acid coffee that is absolutely delicious. Why is it called 7 Weeks Coffee? Because at 7 weeks, the baby is the size of a coffee bean. That's why 7 Weeks Coffee donates 10% of every single sale, including the sale you can make today, to pro-life pregnancy centers. In fact, 7 Weeks Coffee has donated almost $1 million now, over $750,000 to pregnancy centers because of passionate coffee lovers like yourself. And because coffee always tastes better with a free gift, if you go to 7weekscoffee.com today and subscribe using the code Lila at checkout, you will get a free gift. You will get a very cute little engraved wooden and metal coffee spoon. And exclusively for the listeners of this show, you can go to 7weekscoffee.com. You can use the code Lila at checkout to get up to 25% off your first purchase, as well as your free gift. Go to 7weekscoffee.com and don't forget to use that code Lila at checkout for up to 25% off your order when you subscribe. I think the work that we have to do, obviously, like you said, I totally agree. It's a good point. It's education. There's the backlash from the left, and they had so much money to pour into their propaganda campaign. So that's work. I know Live Action's focused on that. A lot of people are realizing how important that is, doubling down on that. Politically, I'm excited because the more we can, move the Overton window of possibility where people were like, it was impossible, with Roe v. Wade, it's impossible to pass pro-life laws because of Roe v. Wade, people would say, right? And I think now it's possible, and it's going to take courageous voices. I mean, you are a courageous voice. I know you said, I'm a red state. It's not as hard to be courageous in Texas because they're all, courageous in Texas. But to still say, listen, of course the federal government does have a role long-term in protecting life. I mean, it's our Constitution that everyone here is supposed to uphold and legislate for.
Yeah.
So it's an all-in strategy. I think everybody has a role to play. And then 10 years from now, what does the future look like? Your daughter will be 10. My daughter will be 10. I've got a 9-month-old. Oh. When they're teenagers, what is America going to look like? I mean, that's what the whole project is about.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's making the argument, and it's easy to debate them on it because you debate anybody on a pro-life, whether if they're pro-choice and you want to have that conversation. Notice they always bypass the debate. They always talk past you. They always immediately go to the exceptions, and to the hard stuff. I'm like, I'm always like, just to be clear, if you're just bypassing the whole conversation about abortion and going straight to the conversation about the exceptions, which are more, I get those are more difficult. So then do we agree that there should be 0 weeks for abortions of convenience? Do we agree on that? Because if you want to talk exceptions, then we must agree that there should be 0 abortions of convenience. And they're like, well, I didn't say that. Well, but you kind of did. I mean, you're accepting that, and it's about accepting the humanity of it too. And I think we've tailored our arguments over time in a much better way. Where I just tell people all the time, I'm like, you call it a baby when you want it. You don't call it some other. You don't call it a zygote or some clump of cells. When you want the baby, you say my baby. So just from it's not religion. That's not my religion talking. That's just a human talking. It's not about science or anything. It's just you feel it as a human being, and you really can't counter that. And I think we continue that. We win the culture war on this, and we convince more people. I think I do like heartbeat bills as a good place to start for some states. Because again, it always depends on the politics of the state, and Florida was courageous in getting theirs done, and because it's easy to explain. If it has a heartbeat, it's a human. How do you say it's not? And it's so some of that. You hate to admit it, but sometimes politics does have to play a role here, and politics meaning our ability to actually persuade people.
Yeah, we did some polling in Florida, and when we described in the poll what the abortion procedure was, even for before the heartbeat, like the chemical abortion pill, this starves a developing, human to death via cutting off its nutrients. Yeah. Majority of Floridians in a blue state were like, yeah, let's ban that. Whatever that is, let's ban it. Yeah. But when you look at, polling where they said, oh, should abortion be restricted in the first trimester? People are going to say, oh, no. But if they know what that abortion is, what it entails, it flips the poll, which is crazy to me. And it just shows that education is so crucial because people just don't know what they don't know. Yeah.
And that's another issue I think we can fix. Speaking of I always get this name wrong, but
mifepristone.
Mifepristone. Yeah. This is a battle we've fought against the Biden administration because they essentially lifted the FDA is essentially just made it too easy to get out, and I think not following the science. I mean, this is a drug that has potentially terrible side effects. It's potentially dangerous. Now, I'd love to just outlaw it, but again, we don't have the votes for it. But we will be pressuring this new FDA administrator to at least put those old parameters back in place. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what they were, but basically, at least it forces a physician to be. You can't just send it to somebody at their house and have them take it. Okay, so there has to be some parameters in place for safety reasons. Which of course does it restrict the use of it? Yeah, it is. Yes, don't get me wrong. I want that, and I admitted I remember talking about this at a hearing. I'm like, yeah, don't get me wrong. I think any pill that just kills a baby is bad. Don't get me wrong.
Sounds reasonable.
If you're accusing me of restricting it, yes, you are correct. I am trying to restrict it, but also what I'm saying makes sense. If it's gonna be legal and I don't have a choice about that, then or at least our administrative state, which is the FDA in this case, should use science to properly administer it and put those guardrails around it, which they lifted, and it's inexplicable why.
Did you know that every year 200,000 families go bankrupt from medical bills, even with health insurance? For many people, insurance is simply not working for them. That's why I'm excited to share with you about CrowdHealth, which is an alternative model for paying for your healthcare. CrowdHealth takes your bills, personally negotiates them on your behalf, and then sends out a request to the community to help cover your bills. The CrowdHealth community has fully funded more than 5,000 medical bills over the last 2 years. This includes accidents like a young woman in Tennessee who lost her fingers in a boating accident, to NICU babies and cancer cases. Keep in mind, CrowdHealth is not the same thing as insurance, but it is an alternative model to help pay medical bills and keep your monthly costs low. So go to Join CrowdHealth today. Use the code Lila at checkout to get your first 3 months for only $99. That's joincrowdhealth.com and use the code Lila at checkout to get your first 3 months for only $99. Joincrowdhealth.com. So overall, would you say your feeling about this second administration in the next 4 years, despite a lot of the challenges, both from the opposition, on the pro-life side, there have been concerns like when are we going to see these pro-life actions? But you're saying, big picture, you think we're in a good spot. We're going to see some big wins, pro-life and beyond.
I hope so. Again, I can't speak for what the Trump administration is going to do on the executive order side. I just don't know, and I don't want to guess. Again, I kind of listed a few things they did last time. It seems likely that those happen again. I do think a lot of our fights have to be at the state level. We are not going to get the votes for some of the bigger wins here. This is a decades-long fight. It really is. It's a decades-long education. You've got to change the minds of entire generations. So I don't want to give false hope. I can only tell you what my position is in the end. It's too hard to predict what this Congress is going to do, and especially with the slim majorities that we have. These things are very difficult. I can speak more for unification on things like again, defunding and preventing gender transition care for minors. I mean, that's a battle I've been fighting for a while now, and I feel somewhat confident I can get that into reconciliation. Not only that, because it's a cost saver as well, just a couple billion actually. A couple billion if we stop hospitals from funding hospitals that are killing or that are mutilating babies, children. The way we constructed that, I think there was actually a cost. The CBO rated that as a cost saver, so it's not much, but have they looked at the disbar? If we disbar
hospitals or clinics that do abortions from Medicaid, has that been looked at? DBAR, excuse me, is the correct terminology, right? Is it DBAR? From Medicaid funds?
Again, it's a coding issue. So, that's why the Planned Parenthood thing is difficult, because they're coding Medicaid, they're charging Medicaid, they're going to be reimbursed by Medicaid under a certain code. And that code is not abortion. That's already, they can't do that. Meaning these
hospitals are directly coding for gender mutilation.
So that's part of our oversight job on energy and commerce is looking at that. And that's because that's been brought to us by some whistleblowers.
So you can cut the Medicaid codes of hospitals for the procedures in hospitals that are transitioning little kids.
Well, in theory, it would be what they're doing is illegal, and this would be a court issue, not a Congress issue. Because if you're intentionally, that's fraud. I mean, that's Medicaid fraud. If you're doing a gender transition, but you're labeling it endocrine therapy, and so that's an oversight issue for us, and that's something we're also looking into as well. On how to deal with that. Again, it's helpful to have a Trump administration in place where we have a more friendly CMS, a leader of CMS who's actually going to look into this.
I do want to ask you about the Hamas-Israel war too, because I know you've been outspoken on that, and I think it's also really important. Do you think we're going to get the rest of the hostages home under Trump? What's your take on the next steps? For peace in the Middle East. I know it's a huge question and topic.
Yeah, it's obviously I would say a big step in the right direction. Kind of depends on who you ask. Recently, Israel is really the one who has to answer that question. For American purposes, what do we want? We want stability. And I always remind people, like, what's our interest in this particular issue? Stability is usually the interest. Ukraine, it's stability. If we allow dictators to conquer other countries to get their land, and that just becomes a normal thing, well, say goodbye to your new world that you've enjoyed for the last 80 years and say hello to history, which was pre-1945, pre-D-Day. What happened then? Tens of millions dead, no real global economy, everyone's life sucked for thousands of years. That was human history. So there's a reason America cares, but it's not the same reason that Israel cares. Israel cares because it's existential for them.
Meaning
they can't have like terrorist organizations that can kill thousands of people right on their borders. So there's a reason they did what they did. But there's under increasing pressure to just at least come to an understanding, at least come to a ceasefire. Unclear to me whether that peace plan means Hamas stays in power in some way. We talk about demilitarizing Hamas. Does that mean they're still the elected governing body? I don't think we know that yet. I think there was the Trump effect probably helped because, he in his typical Trump threatening kind of way said, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was very threatening. And, you better release the hostage by the time I get in office or you'll have hell to pay or something like that. And, I would believe him. And that probably helped the situation along a little bit. It's helpful when you take a side. One of the problems with the way Biden has dealt with this particular situation is dithering on which side he wants to take. And it's just not helpful. You need to be more clear about where you stand on the issue, and that actually helps everyone, including Gazans who are suffering because they let Hamas rule them, and that's a terrorist organization that likes to kill innocent people and babies. So, it's a horrible situation. But I always say, I'm like, what would you do if they killed that many Americans? And proportionally, you're talking about 43,000 Americans just murdered in cold blood. What would you do? I don't think we'd ever stop fighting. I don't think as Americans we'd ever have a peace deal with whoever did that to us. You'd send guys like me there, and we would kill them forever. That's what we would do. And so I don't think people put themselves in these really situations enough because I know how we would react if you attacked us in that kind of manner. But do we get the rest of the hostages? Yes, I think it seems to be like we're on track to do that. Seems to be. It's hard to predict. Don't have a lot of crystal balls.
I think there were a couple American hostages released yesterday, is my understanding. And, I'm hopeful that this will all be over soon. And there's 2 little children. There was a 9-month-old little boy, Kefir and Ariel, and his 4-year-old brother. And they would be like 2 now and 6. I mean, they've been hostages in Gaza.
Crazy. Yeah.
And the world just has ignored it largely. I mean, obviously America is trying to support Israel's attempt to get them back, but it is, and then there's obviously the horrible collateral of lives lost in Gaza, lives lost in Israeli soldiers, everything else. It's obviously a mess, and a lot of people are just wanting it to end.
Yeah, and a lot of the world, it's not like the world forgot there, but they've been focused on Israel, and focus on Israel atrocities. And again, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. Hamas has been good for decades at this game, where you attack, and then you use your own people as human shields, and then you use that as PR. This is the cycle over and over and over again, and has been for a long time. And the world falls for it. But it is what it is. That's why it's important to have, I think, a clear-eyed moral view of it, and a realistic view too. That's why I bring up, like, what would you do if 40,000 of your fellow Americans were just murdered? I mean, I just bombed just murdered, like straight up shot,
and
gunned
some of
down,
them tortured, raped. I mean, really disgusting. Children kept kidnapped. I mean, really dark stuff. The darkest of the dark.
Right. What would you do? Yeah. Like I don't think you'd ever stop fighting this until they were eradicated. I know I wouldn't. So it's hard to place a lot of blame. People are like, well, they could do it differently. And I'm like, well.
Like how?
Yeah, I'm like, well, tell me more about how you understand urban warfare. Because, and of course they don't. They don't understand that there's thousands of miles of tunnels. That's just what, Hamas uses a lot of their aid money to build is thousands of miles of tunnels, which is also why it's so hard to rescue hostages. People are like, just use special operations, just be surgical. I'm like,
just send Dan Crenshaw in there.
Tell me more about what you know about special operations and like what's required of this. Like, it's not as simple as you think. There's real operational issues with any hostage rescue for sure. You've got to know exactly where they're at. You got to have a plan. This is the most dangerous kind of mission there is. You can't use the kind of tactics you would normally use. Hostage rescues are extremely dangerous and difficult, and they're especially difficult when the hostages are probably in these tunnels, and we don't know where the entrances to these tunnels usually are. I mean, oftentimes they're like in a random apartment building.
Or a children's school.
Yeah, often. Yeah, exactly. And so it's a very difficult situation. Always has been. It's one of the more difficult urban environments that anyone has ever fought a war in. And so,
do you think Israel is being uncaring of civilians because of the civilian death count that Hamas is reporting of Gazans? Do you think Israel could be I know you said armchair quarterback, like who it's such a difficult fight to fight, but based on your sense of it, I mean, you've been in warfare, you understand it. Do you think that they're doing as best a job as one can reasonably do, or do you think they're actually just trying to Holocaust all of Gaza, like they're being accused of?
No, I think they're doing the best they can. And it comes from experts who have really just crunching some actual data in an objective way. They've done more than I think any other campaign in history, including ours, in places like Fallujah. They're dropping leaflets. They're sending texts out. You need to get out. You need to get out of here. You can't be here. We're about to do an operation here. It's terrible tactics to telegraph to the enemy where you're going to be. But they've been doing it. So I think they do as much as they possibly can. They use precision weaponry to the greatest extent they possibly can. But you are talking about a very dense environment, and it's horrible that there's casualties. It'd be better if Hamas gave up. Why don't they just do that? Like, how come none of the people who criticize Israel, they could also say, well, why doesn't Hamas just give up, and then the war would end? And that's the difference between, if Israel just gives up, let's say Israel just lays down all their arms and just throws them in the ocean, what would happen? Hamas would cleanse them. They would commit genocide from the river to the sea, just like what's in their doctrine. If Hamas laid down their arms, what would happen? Gazans would live peacefully. That's what would happen. There would be no genocide. So it's, the moral difference between the two sides is massive.
I think a lot of people are just seeing endless, I would call it propaganda of people saying Israel is like the bad guy here, Israel. And they're not seeing what you're stating very reasonably and clearly about what the actual dynamics are on the ground in Gaza and Israel.
And that's always been a problem that Israel has had and Jews have had for a very long time. So, putting out some context and truth out there is important. Because when you see it on campuses and especially the future of the Democrat Party, the current Democrat Party, the older folks, definitely more pro-Israel, or at least have like a sane view of the situation. The younger generation is wildly anti-Israel, wildly anti. I mean, if you're chanting "River to the Sea," it means genocide. I hate to break it to you, that's what it means. But that's kind of that's what you're normally hearing on college campuses. Now, is that an extreme minority view on college campuses? Turns out, some data would show that it is. So we're maybe not in as bad a position as we think we are, but it's still a problem. I mean, it's just getting people the facts is still a problem.
Congressman, thank you so much for fighting for life in the womb and outside of the womb. And thank you again for your service.
Appreciate it.
And for being so pro-family.
Thank you.
A huge thank you to our partner, EWTN. EWTN is the largest religious network reaching millions of people with the truth of the faith, entertainment, and news. Check them out at EWTN.com.